want to think of his response when those eminent lawyers cross-examined him, and his response was, "I can't recall." If at least there is one thing that you will remember about him, is the statement. And I am certain that there are many more things, much more than the statement, that we can recount on Dwight Augustus Nelson. And I salute this outstanding Jamaican for his contribution to labor industrial relations, to politics, to education, because for a while he served and he lectured at the University of the West Indies. And as a staff member at that institution, I want to also extend our profound condolences to him. May his soul rest in peace.
Senator Knight, Happy New Year.
Thank you, President. President, at one stage in my professional career, was an attorney for the National Workers Union. And it was during that stage that I met the late Dwight Nelson. And so I knew him as a trade unionist, and I will only adopt all that has been said about him as an outstanding trade unionist. I also served in the Senate with him, and at a stage he was sitting where Senator Cavan Gale now sits, and he was often advising the person who then sat to his left. And speaking for myself, I was pleased when he gave that advice, because it meant that we on this side could speak. I remember him having taken over as leader of government business, and he took over at a time when the relationship between that side and this side was extremely tense. And when he assumed the role of leader of government business, the entire atmosphere changed. And it became a period when, as between that side and this side, we could engage in discourse once again. And discourse not only in the chamber, but outside of the chamber. And it spoke well to his leadership quality. I am perhaps using the word loosely, but friendship became the order of the day again. And so I'll never forget that period. As Minister of National Security, I recall him calling me. Yes, calling me and saying, "KD, I want to talk with you." And I said, sure. And we met, sat down, and he said that he had seen certain things that had been put in place in the Ministry of National Security during my watch, and they had been changed, and he wanted to ask me my views again on those things. And after a process of reasoning, he decided that there are a couple that he would institute and some that he would not. But what struck me was that here he was on a totally different side, understanding that as bad as any of us may have been in a ministry, there was perhaps something good that came out of it. And it is the something good that he wanted to pursue, and to me spoke volumes to the nature of the man. And so I am saddened by his passing. I'm saddened also because we lived very close to each other. I was just at the top of the road, and he was just a little way down from me. So I passed his house every day that I left mine. President, may his soul rest in peace, and light perpetually shine upon him. He will be remembered.
Could we stand for a moment of silence, please? May his soul rest in peace. Be seated, please. And as we sit, I'd like to ask that the Hansard note be sent to his family by the House of Parliament.
I'm sure, President, that would be accompanied by the appropriate letter of condolences as well. That's your intention.
It certainly will, and the President will make sure that happens. Statement by ministers. Announcements.
President.
Senator Knight, thank you.
Thank you, sir. With the situation going on in Venezuela, and with a position reported in the press that the government of Jamaica has taken, I would be surprised if the Minister of Foreign Affairs and Foreign Trade does not think it proper to make a statement in the Parliament where she sits as the minister in this chamber. It is of extreme importance to how Jamaica now operates in relation to the sovereignty of other countries, and whether or not our position has changed in relation to that. I cannot think at all and could not accept that a statement at this time is not going to be made. Some public announcement, some talk on radio, that's not enough. The Parliament, the Senate must hear. Hansard must record what the policy of the government is. Has it changed? Has the behavior of the government been consistent with existing policy? That must be said in the Senate. And therefore, as was done on another occasion when a statement was expected, if there is not a statement to be made later today, having asked for suspension of the standing orders, then I would ask the minister, please, on the next occasion that Parliament, that the Senate sits, that you undertake to give a statement in this chamber.
Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. President, and I understand my colleagues' position this morning and certainly the request. And I just want to assure that it is the intention so to do. It is, however, felt that at this particular point, it would not be best for us to make the statement today. But I do undertake to make a statement which will likely be perhaps more comprehensive than the one which I would have been able to give today. I ask for understanding of the members of the House, of this chamber, given the dynamism and the particular circumstances. I will also state, however, that in the broader context, that I was present at the meeting of CARICOM heads last evening, which took place over a period of almost 5 hours. The meeting took, and a statement was prepared by heads. I accompanied our Prime Minister, the Most Honorable Andrew Holness, as part of that video conference. And the statement has been made public. It was issued last night. And we do stand by the positions there set out. In the interim, if the member wishes, I could certainly read the statement of CARICOM heads into the record for the purposes of noting the regional position which has been adopted by the government of Jamaica as well as part of that meeting, and then perhaps deal with issues more broadly, the more specific and economic issues at the next sitting, because it would not be appropriate for me to treat with them today. If the member wishes to indicate.
Senator Knight.
Thank you. Jamaica took a certain position at the OAS, and that position doesn't stand in isolation, and therefore, whilst I understand you're saying you don't think it is appropriate at this time, having regard to the position taken by Jamaica then, and having regard to the public utterances from the government, it seems strange to me that there is something of an important nature that would prevent a statement being made. However, I'm going to accept the position that you have stated and would want, for example, the CARICOM statement to be integrated in your presentation on the next occasion. And in particular, if you could tell us in relation to Jamaica and Trinidad and Tobago, if there is a difference and why. Because as you know, in CARICOM, what we try to do is to coordinate foreign policy, not harmonize. And so I'd like to see how, you know, that played out when you give your statement. But you will know what you want to disclose.
Mr. President, I wish to thank the member for his understanding, and it's undoubtedly grounded in his understanding of sometimes the sensitivities. And he will probably also understand my reluctance to go behind the statement or behind the curtain of the meeting into what may be differences between particular countries, where those countries have not issued separate statements that are indicative of this as well, because certainly the discussion has its to and fro and its compromises, and persons, of course, have different views on particular points, but we come to a consensus. And that was the basis of the release that was issued. But we can discuss, and certainly I do intend to make a full statement on the related issues, so at the next sitting of the Senate. So I would hope at that time that the members' questions and concerns will be addressed fully. Thank you.
Chair, President, just want to clarify something.
Senator Brown, yes.
The minister said the next sitting. And I was listening keenly in another place, and I was told that certain actions relative to the legislative process in Venezuela will take place next week. Next week has come and gone without any sitting. Is the minister giving us an assurance that the next sitting will be next week? Because then we would be able to say with some certainty that the minister will make a statement next week, Friday. I say this because we are also in the period in which the Parliament may be prorogued for the break on the throne speech. And I would hate to know that that important statement, which should guide all of us, may not come and get lost in the pageantry and the pomp of the throne speech and what follows from that.
Mr. President, I've given the assurance that at the next sitting of the Senate, the statement will be made. I believe the assurance that was given in the other place was at the next sitting, but we were in cabinet retreat this week, and therefore the next sitting of that other place is next week. And I've given the assurance, and it is the assurance I'm willing to give today.
Thank you, Minister. Announcements.
Laid on the table of the Senate today are the following. Minister Paper Number 1 of 2019, entitled Cabinet Agenda Issues for the 5th, 12th, 19th, and 26th of November 2018. Second Supplementary Estimates 2018-2019, and Public Bodies Second Supplementary Estimates of Revenue. This is for information purposes only. Auditor General's Information Technology Audit Report on Information Technology Governance of Select Public Entities, Jamaica Constabulary Force, Jamaica Information Service, and the Ministry of Finance and Public Service. The Auditor General's Information Technology Audit Report on Information Technology Audit Report on the Disposal of ICT Equipment of Select Entities, Ministry of Science, Energy and Technology, eGov Jamaica Limited, and Post and Telecommunications Department. The Auditor General's Annual Report of the Financial Transaction and Financial Statements of the Government of Jamaica for the year ended March 31, 2018, and a Performance Report of the Auditor General's Department. Annual Report of the National Land Agency for the year 2008-2009. Annual Report and Audited Financial Statements of the Jamaica Bauxite Mining Limited for the year 2016-2017. Annual Report for the Financial Investigations Division, FID, for the year 2015-16. Annual Reports of the National Export-Import Bank of Jamaica, Exim Bank, for the years 2014-15 and 2017-18. Annual Report of the Land Administration and Management Program, LAMP, for the year 2012-2013. Special reports of the Integrity Commission on the following. Investigation conducted into the sale of land situated at Bogue Estate by the St. James Parish Council. Investigation conducted into allegations regarding the removal of aluminium water tank located at Top Crawl, Riversdale, St. Catherine. Investigation conducted into alleged acts of irregularity and impropriety surrounding the submission of forged, quote-unquote, National Contract Commission, NCC registration, letter by Orchard Solutions Limited, an investigation conducted into circumstances surrounding allegation of impropriety, irregularity, and bias concerning Petrojam Limited's 2017 tender for insurance services. Integrity Report, Special Report of the Investigation and Complaint regarding the issuance of lobster fisheries license to a family member of a then government minister.
Bills brought from the...
Sorry. A couple of weeks ago, I raised the question of a list that we had agreed would accompany the announcement. I've searched on my desk, my colleagues have searched on their desk, and we can't find this list. But it's important, and I want to ask, did the list of announcement include the Auditor General report on the Ministry of Local Government? Was that one of those? But I still want to get the list of the announcements, because that's what we agreed to in the Senate. And it's the second time in recent times that announcements have been made without that list being provided to us.
Leader, who will address this? You, let's go. The list is being worked on. Petitions?
The list is being worked on. I did ask whether, because I believe the other place have received an announcement for the Auditor General report on the overruns and other things at Ministry of Local Government, and I'm just trying to see whether or not the Senate is going to get it, because I don't see it in the list of things, in the things that we got, and I have not received a list to check to see whether it's there. But I'm told it's a very damning report, and I'd love to, as a senator, be provided with a copy of it.
Petitions?
President, some of the answer to the question about the local government audit, we're not receiving an answer.
Senator Brown, I've been informed that the longer document that you have is the one that was tabled and circulated in that other place. And the shorter document dated Friday, January 25th, 2019 is the only subsequent development. And so it's been circulated here. That's the official information that I have.
What I'm trying, could you identify which document on this list that you have now been circulated to us of announcement? I will find the Auditor General report on the local government. I'd appreciate knowing
that's a longer list you're talking about. The one that was yes, tabled in the other place.
Has it been contained? Is it contained? Could I see which other document it's in?
We don't have the specifics. This is all that we have from the other place. So I'll have to abide by that, Senator Brown, until I get additional information. In which case, I'm going to ask. We deal with the official documents that we have. So I'm going to go to the other item, bills brought from the Honorable House of Representatives.
The following is a message from the Speaker of the House of Representatives to the Honourable Senate. I have the honour to advise the Honourable Senate that on the 15th day of January 2019, the House of Representatives agreed to the Senate amendments to a bill entitled An Act to Give Effect to the Provisions of the International Convention for the Control and Management of Ships' Ballast Water and Sediments 2004, signed Pernell P. Charles, CDJP MP, Speaker of the House of Representatives.
Petitions, papers, reports from committees, notices of motions given orally, questions and answers to questions.
Mr. President.
Senator Brown.
On the question notice paper, there are two questions standing in my name. Both were required, responses both were required on the 21st of December 2018. This, of course, is our first sitting in 2019. Could we get an update as to whether those questions are going to be answered today? The Minister is not here, but it can't be that we ignore our obligations under the standing order. Oh, come on, sitting in that seat now? Yeah.
Senator Johnson Smith.
Yes, Mr. President, I note the questions which are given, of course, for the response by Minister of Education, Youth and Information, and regret that I'm not in a position to table them today. I will seek an update from the Minister, who is traveling on official government business, so that, or that if he is present, he certainly at the next occasion can provide that update if the questions themselves are not tabled. Thank you. The answers.
Motions that may be made at the commencement of the public business requiring notice. Motions relating to sittings of the Senate. Motions for leave to introduce bills. Presentation of bills without leave of the Senate first obtained. Public business.
Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. President, today it is intended to continue the State of the Nation debate. It is intended that Senator Delroy Williams will commence, to be followed by Senator Lambert Brown, and thereafter Senator Ransford Brim. We look forward to hearing their respective contributions. Thank you, Mr. President.
Senator Williams.
Morning. Good morning, Mr. President. Good morning, colleagues. I have I'm seeing most of you for the first time since the festive season. So let me just wish you a prosperous and progressive 2019 and hope that we will be able to achieve much for our country, and in my case, for our city, well, city and country, as we work together to do so, which I'm pretty confident we will do. Let me also take this opportunity. I see members of the Kingston and St. Andrew Municipal Corporation here. I was just going to ask. I see the town clerk is there, several councillors, Councillor Dwayne Smith and Donovan Samuels from the Tivoli Gardens Division. I am seeing Councillor Townsend from the Olympic Gardens Division, my colleague councillor. And so let me just say thank you, even though you should be running back to the office, much to be done. But I guess this is very important also for you to understand the thinking of the Senate. No. As you would know, it doesn't need us every second of the day to move, to keep things going. So let me also take this opportunity to commend the staff at the Kingston and St. Andrew Municipal Corporation for the wonderful job that they are doing at this very important juncture in the life of the city of Kingston, and also take the opportunity also to thank other agencies, the UDC, NAA, JCIF, NSWMA, and the others, the fire department, for working closely with the Kingston and St. Andrew Municipal Corporation for developing the synergy and the seamless coordination that we are embarking on, we have embarked on in terms of delivering quality services to our residents. I will start. I just break down the speech. It will not be as long as my colleague over there, colleague Senator Lambert Brown, but it will be, I know. But it will be, I will just start by just outlining. I've done so before, but it's important to repeat some things in terms of outlining some of the challenges as we see them, especially the intangibles. And then we move from there to some policy approaches that we have been taking at the municipality, and then end by looking at some concrete stuff and some ideas that we are brainstorming, and invite the government to really look at some of those ideas, and members of the Senate, because that is important to us. The presentation, Mr. President, will be based primarily on Kingston, but the points that will be made, it's not the intention that they only apply to Kingston, because they can be spread right across the country, across the municipal corporations, which in the end ought to benefit the country as a whole. So firstly, I would just like to say that as mayor and as chairperson of the municipal corporation, and I'm sure the town clerk is here, I know that it is a concern of him also, is that I believe that the greatest challenge we face in this period of transformation, and in this period where transformations are required across the municipality, the greatest challenge, I believe, to us is the indifference and the unconcern of our residents across the municipality. And I say that it is the greatest challenge because to really resolve many of the urban challenges that we have require the input of our residents. It requires input at the level of questions, because there are important questions that must be asked. And if not asked and debated within the public sphere, will lead to the demise of our city, our capital city. And there are also answers that must be given. And it requires the input of our residents, which means that we have to get a more, participatory or active participation on the part of our residents in the decision-making process and in dealing with questions and answers. Because part of the transformation that is required has to come from our residents in order to create the order and in order to resolve many of the challenges facing our city. Input of our residents is critical. And so we can't have a significant percentage of our residents unconcerned and indifferent to what we do. So our challenge at the municipality, which is, I believe, the greatest challenge, is to move our residents from indifference. So to move them from that indifference to begin to participate and having, yes, that sense of responsibility. That is a challenge, but it's a challenge that we have embraced and we are on the path. We believe that we are doing our best to try and get them involved in the process and understanding the inputs that are required from our residents to make the transformations that are required to move our city to what we call at the KCMC the grand era of the city. So that is important. So how do we do that? Well, in part, we believe that we do that. I hope I can explain it properly, but I know you're quite good at understanding what I'm saying, even if it's not clear. The imagination. The imagination is critical to moving our residents from indifference to participation. And we might ask, why is the imagination important? And this is the intangible part of the presentation. The imagination is important because it gives shape to thought. It's like it's giving form to thought. So when we all have thoughts, and the thoughts are on the structure of our minds. And so we have very wonderful thoughts and ideas. But it may be organized in our minds, but the thoughts outside of our minds, if not given shape and form, cannot be understood by our residents. And that's the function, I believe, of the imagination. It is now giving the shape to the thoughts that will appeal and get the interest of our residents. And that is part. It might appear as, but this intangible is important. Because it's important that we have to understand that we begin with thoughts, and then we move it to the level where we give the shape to the thoughts. And then those thoughts and ideas must be understood by our residents. So they must appeal to our residents. And then from that, then we move to the implementation. But we can't move to the implementation if we don't have the buy-in and the acceptance and the understanding of our residents. And so that is the greatest challenge, we believe, at the KCMC confronting us now, and that is something that we are working on resolving in our various ways. And I end that point by just saying, so give you an idea of what I mean by giving shape to thought. So we are talking about this Kingston that we are creating, this new Kingston into the grand era. And there are many ideas. But then when we speak of it as, this might not be the best example, but fine. So when we say Kingston, the pearl of the Antilles, the light of the Caribbean Sea. It's important that we say it that way, because we believe even in that simple term, we are beginning to give shape to an idea that can capture the imagination of our residents. And that is what we're seeking to do. So we continue on that challenge, and we ask for your prayers in fashioning and shaping the way forward with respect to getting the buy-in and appealing and getting the interest of our residents into what must be done in respect to the transformation that must take place in the city, the capital city of our country. Yes, people-centered. And you'll see when we go towards the end of this presentation, you'll see exactly how it ties in with what we have just said. Also, I'd like to say that I'd like to also speak about the policy approaches now. So let's now move to some of the policy approaches that are very important to us as we try to enhance the quality of life within the city and enhance the quality of the services we deliver to our residents. We speak about what we call a future-oriented and long-term outlook in policy formulation. That is something that is important. So it's future-oriented, long-term. So your policy formulation is future-oriented and long-term. You may ask, why future, why long-term? Very simple. We believe that this will help us to avoid the pitfalls of making decisions that might be expedient in the short term, but prove costly in the long term. And that is why it is important that you have this future orientation when you're formulating your policies, so that you avoid certain pitfalls. And I say that the capital city, at the level of the leadership of the capital city, that we have been doing that, ensuring that our policy formulation and our policy that we have designed, that is long-term, which means that others can come after us and pursue. Secondly, we believe that we ought to build the flexibility in our urban planning regime, that we live in an environment which demands that we always raise questions relating to assumptions. At the municipality, we are developing the mindset that is always willing to reverse decisions if those decisions are flawed and based on wrong assumptions. Now, this is important. And it's important because of many things that we are observing in the capital city. So we have made decisions, and we have been pursuing projects and developments and so forth. At some point in the pursuit, we are saying that we have to always be analyzing our policies, reviewing our policies. So we don't just have a policy and then we just pursue the policy endlessly without constant review and evaluation and assessment of the policy and the assumptions that are part of the policy in its formulation. So we always have to be reviewing that and be willing to reverse those policies when necessary. When necessary. This is also something that you will see that will tie in as we get towards the end of this presentation. So what we are saying that at the KSAMC, we are committed to developing within the public sector a culture of always seeking to do things better and cheaper. We ought to understand that the public sector culture affects how civil servants, public officers, and politicians carry out their responsibilities. We deem it part of our responsibility to begin to help to shape the public sector culture. Right, Town Clerk? You don't answer. Thirdly, in a climate of limited resources and limited sources of revenues, we are framing the mind in always seeking to find solutions that maximize the effectiveness of scarce municipal resources. Maximizing the effectiveness of scarce municipal resources is paramount to the efficient delivery of services and enhancing the quality of life of our residents. It is critical in confronting the many and varied urban challenges to create a livable, sustainable, and resilient city. I remember speaking to Mr. Gazanazan only yesterday, but it wasn't the first time he said it. And he said to us, a group of us at the KCMC, that he enjoys driving in the morning to work and passing what we call the flag circle. The flag circle, which is that, yes, that adjacent the prison. Oh, yeah. And he enjoys it. And then he said, and as a businessman, I guess he would know. He said that you guys took this small amount of money, and with this small amount of money, you have made such a great impact with a project. And that is what we're speaking to. Limited resources, limited sources of revenue, but we can search for projects that will have big impact with limited resources. Projects that will enhance the quality of life of the residents of our municipality. And that is part of also the policy approach that we are embarking on. Fourthly, we are focused on results-oriented approach to policy making in urban governance. We strongly believe that an unsentimental and pragmatic focus on results would lead to the efficient provision of services to the public. We seek to resolve urban challenges through the utilization of policies grounded on the proper assessment of likely or logical outcomes of those policies, which means that in the policy formulation, we have to outwork the policy. It's just the rational mind, Mr. Senator Knight, and I know you are quite comfortable with that. So when we formulate policies, outwork the policies to see where they lead. And if the policies are leading to the desired ends. Because many policies are formulated, not, for want of a better word, not outworked, not brought to logical conclusions, which prove costly. Prove costly that you have to now revisit and redo policies, and two, you don't get the desired results. So we are saying in the policy formulation, let's outwork our policies. Let us bring them to their logical conclusions. Let us ground them in proper assessment of where they will end up when you outwork them. And that is critical to the policy formulation process. And that is something that we are taking seriously at the Kingston and St. Andrew Municipal Corporation. A result-oriented approach to governance requires careful thought and assessment. We always must take the time to examine the performance of existing policies and discard or rework to obtain better results. In building the city of Kingston, we believe the agencies of government must emphasize alignment so that our efforts are coordinated and not fragmented. This is absolutely necessary in a changing and complex environment. The public service needs to be aligned to respond to changing circumstances. We have to look at cities as systems in which everything is interconnected and interdisciplinary. Modern urban and municipal challenges fall outside existing organizational boundaries. They tend to involve multiple dimensions. So enhanced coordination gives us our best chance of addressing these challenges well, which is why we have been moving towards service agreements. And which is why we have been, and I must say, I commend all the agencies, the UDC, the JSIF, NWC, NAA. We have realized the importance of this seamless coordination and alignment of agencies to achieve what we want to achieve for our city, for our country. And that this is essential. Seamless coordination is a competitive advantage. It is a competitive advantage. So it must be taken seriously. Now let us turn to the concluding section of my presentation, which would be now the tangibles. Mr. President, Ernst & Young, one of the big 4 accounting firms globally, they did a study some time ago and an analysis of that study. The study was of 11 sectors within the creative industry in terms of the economic value of those sectors to the global economy. And in their finding was that 11 creative sectors contributed in terms of revenues $2,250 billion to the global economy. The highest earners being television, newspapers, magazines, visual arts. The study went further to show that revenues from the creative industries surpassed that or exceeded that of telecommunications. Also, the study revealed that the creative industries is among the highest employer of persons. Significant. So now we have Judicial and Flow, 2 major corporations employing thousands of Jamaicans. And we have not even begun to tap into the creative industry. So when the Prime Minister speaks of the Most Honorable Andrew Holness, speaks of full employment, and for some of us, just remember in our introduction to economics, and speak of full employment, persons might look at it and say, no, we know the general. But really, if we are now 8.4%, trending down, very good. And we have not yet tapped into one of the industries that really is a major employer of persons. Can we imagine where we will end up in terms of the unemployment rate if we really begin to frame the environment to facilitate the creative industry? That must be important to us. And I know Senator Crawford is keen on this also. And he has had many conversations with me. I know we agree on many, many issues. And I know that he's dedicated to that also. And I'm just saying to the Senate, when the Prime Minister speaks of full employment, please take it seriously, because it is possible. And I'm saying to the Senate that we need to begin to frame the environment to encourage the creative industry. So when we speak of the creative industry, we tend to think just of music. But as we can see, it's really not just music. The analysis was done of 11 sectors. 11 sectors. I believe that we have not even we have such a colorful history. And we have not even begun to really look at filmmaking. And if you look at India, South Korea, all in some parts of Africa, they are far ahead of us in terms of creating films that represent the way of life in their country. And we believe we have the market. We have the market locally and we have the market internationally. There are too many persons out there who want to learn of our way of life here. And we can give them that access also through the creative industry. Just also like to make a point that also that part of this also means that we have to train persons within the industry. So the training is important. And the KSAMC has been toying with the idea. We have had discussions with a very important training institution, creative training institution. I see only in today's paper that I see that they are trying to earn 20. They are basically being enlisted on the Junior Stock Exchange. And that is important. That is an important achievement because this is a creative training institution that is now moving to be listed on the Junior Stock Exchange. So the creative industry is beginning to take a hold or beginning to become a feature of our economy. And I believe it must be encouraged. And I commend the directors of that company. And for us, the KSAMCU will contemplate, and I have said that it must go to our finance committee, must contemplate the training of young persons across the municipality with respect to in the creative industry. Train them to become creatives, because this is also important in expanding the creative industry with respect to the potential it has for job creation, for business and business opportunities. We have also been partnering with Kingston Creatives Art District team to establish a functional and organized community of local talent that will help to transform our city. Why? Because we know the benefit of the industry. Where music is concerned, Kingston is the home of reggae music, dancehall, etc. The city recorded 14.8% increase in revenues from the entertainment industry for party amusement license for the period January to November 2018 when compared to the same period in 2017. We take this opportunity. I mean, we know that there is room for improvement, right? Yes. So, but we take this opportunity to commend our events promoters. We must commend them. What we see in Kingston, well, across Jamaica, is a group of events promoters that are basically on the cutting edge in respect to the globe. They are designing and developing entertainment products that appeal to a wide cross-section of our population, locally and internationally. And this is important to our economy. And so I like to take this opportunity to commend them. I mean, I can single out one because he's a councillor. I mean, Councillor Bellamy, and not one, Councillor Bellamy from the Isle of Soca. And you have Councillor Patrick Roberts, who is also a councillor, but very critical and instrumental in moving entertainment products. Yes, our very own Senator Samuda. Yes, he had a so you get the point I'm talking about. The event that Senator Samuda was part of in the festive season was also a product of a difference, because our entertainment products must appeal to a wide cross-section of persons. Yes. Without the permit. Senator Brian, next time come for the permit. I'm just joking. But there are issues, and Senator Crawford understands. So the value of the creative industry to the economy, to the city's economy and to the country's economy is paramount. It's there. It's a fixture. We understand it. But there are issues like entertainment zones that we have been speaking about for many years. There are issues of the nighttime economy, which is a multi-billion-dollar economy and a phenomenon that is becoming a prominent feature of cities across the globe. We have to, in all honesty, begin to deal with these issues and resolve these issues. they can be resolved. They can be resolved. We understand all the issues at stake. We understand the issue of someone wanting to enjoy the peace of their home. We understand the issue of the importance of the entertainment industry to job creation and to fostering business opportunities, and how it is linked into the economy and our GDP. So we have to resolve those issues. At the KSAMC, we believe that you can declare entertainment zones with special conditions. With special conditions. And those conditions will vary from number of events per month to decibel levels. And decibel levels are not difficult. I use my phone. And sometimes I go to these events, use my phone, use the app on my phone, and I check the decibel levels. So we can make the decibel levels, yes, because you can say at a certain time the decibel levels, the decibel level for, depending on where the location is, has to be this at midnight or whatsoever it is. And the police can easily use their phones to check the decibel levels. So I'm saying we must begin to deal with the issue of entertainment zones, because this is important. This is important to the economy of the city. And this is important to the Jamaican economy. Do not underestimate. Really?
Thank you very much, Senator. The Speaker's time has expired.
Yes, that his time be extended on to allow him to complete his presentation.
We're going to. The question is that you be given time. The question is that. The question is that the Speaker's time be extended within the terms of the agreement to allow him to complete his speech in short order. Those in favor? Against?
This must be history. All right, so that is an issue that we believe that and we encourage the Ministry of Culture and the municipalities and the Ministry of National Security to meet and begin to work out the legal framework for this industry. We also like to take this opportunity to say thank you to the government for the road improvement and road rehabilitation across the municipality. Urban mobility is important. Urban mobility is important. The KSAMC could not have done this with the limited resources, so we at the KSAMC, we take the time, Mr. President, to say thank you to the government for all the the infrastructural transformations taking place across the municipality. It's very important, it's timely because we have said the issue of urban mobility is something that we have to take seriously now, because it will affect us if we don't take the right decisions now over the next 15 to 20 years. We ourselves at the KSAMC, we have also been looking at some changes that we believe we ought to begin to have some discussions with respect to enhanced traffic flow. The crossroads area is one that is of interest to us. We believe that we have some recommendations that we can begin to have those discussions with the NAA and other stakeholders that would enhance the movement of public and private transport or vehicles through crossroads. And this is underscoring the importance of resolving problems now and not waiting for the next 10 years. Because the next 10 years, crossroads, if you pass through crossroads on a regular basis, you would begin to understand how difficult crossroads can become over the next 10 years. And which means that we must now find some solutions to deal with crossroads. There are some temporary solutions that we can move at quickly, and then we look at the long-term solutions after.
And we have the right team in place.
Mr. President, as I draw to the close of my presentation, there are some issues that we want to put on the table. One, the parade area. We're getting very concrete now. Parade area. Now, the parade area, that area where Queen Street, and I'm getting back to 1692 now, where Queen Street and King Street intersects. That is how it was designed in the original design of Kingston. King Street was the center street. Yes. From north to south. From east to west, Queen Street. They intersected at where we now call Parade. That you're going back to the history, to the 1690s. That was the design. Parade at that time we know was a military camp. So the history is rich when we speak of Parade. And it was a critical part of the design of Kingston. Now, if you look at the Parade area, in addition to Parade being very historic, dating back to the 1690s, early 1700s, then we have the Ward Theatre, a theatre space since the 1750s. Cope Methodist Church, Kingston Parish Church, Liberty Hall, where we are now. So just look at Parade. This is history. This is where the history of our city resides. I know. And I'm saying that the space as is now, as a municipality and as a government, we cannot accept. We cannot accept. So the KSAMC, and I know
Senator Williams, you talk about Parade and don't refer to the markets on the west side of the Parade.
The market is a Senator, he'll understand the market. Yeah. Oh yeah, so it's in the 2020. So look at this rich historic space within our city and look at its current condition. It's a conflictive zone of mobility where public transport, private transport, and pedestrians competing. In a space that ought to be a historic and recreational space for our residents and visitors. So the KSAMC has been looking at the design of the space to increase the percentage of this pedestrian area of the space and to make the space historic. To put into the space monuments that speak to our history. A rich history. So we are saying to the central government that the central government has to begin to give serious consideration to the proposals and recommendations coming out of the KSAMC. Also, attached to this must be, one, the relocation of the public transport in the space and the creation, we believe, of a new transport center for downtown. We believe that downtown, the demands on the infrastructure of downtown is exceeding what was contemplated when the infrastructure was put in place downtown. Downtown cannot handle, the infrastructure downtown now cannot handle the demand on it. That's a point of information. So what we are saying is we have to have a transport center downtown. It's not whether we should, it has to be. So the idea of a transport center is relevant for downtown. And I'll just add that we have to rethink. Earlier we spoke about rethinking policies and reviewing. Where the water lane, Mr. Chairman, where the water lane transport center is now? Well, bus terminals. I personally, from the KSAMC, I believe it's something that we have to relook. Yeah, we don't believe that that is the proper location in the context of the development going forward, that is the proper location for a transport center. Yes. So Senator Braham, in your other shoes, yeah, we need to begin those discussions seriously, because I'm sure there are willing investors that would surely be willing to invest in creating a transport center in another location and fit this water lane location to more appropriate purposes and uses. I end, Mr. President, I end on this. Yes, yeah, I want to leave that for 20. I'm going to ask for another presentation later this year. Mr. President, I end. I know I'm going too long now, and I generally don't go very long in the Senate. So, but I am saying this. Now, there are some issues. Now, just several days ago, we saw Kevin Hendrickson, Mr. Hendrickson. There was a newspaper article about a new building, the tallest in the city, in Jamaica. It's what, 28 stories, yeah. Now, the KSAMC, now we are supportive. We are supportive. But we are putting something on the table. We are saying that we believe that it is time that we have serious discussion. And the Prime Minister had it in his budget presentation. So it must be important. So we must have serious discussion on the issue of height restrictions. So what we are saying is that we believe you can have height restrictions in the residential areas of the city, the suburban areas of the city. But with respect to the urban areas, we believe that you can remove the height restrictions. Wait. And look and evaluate these applications on a case-by-case basis. Look here, the studies are there and the knowledge is available. There are, when you're dealing with height, when you're dealing with tall buildings, look here. Yeah, I'm coming. But this is important. This is, Mr. President, this is very important. When we are dealing with, since 2015, we have had, across the globe, an increase in the number of buildings above 300 meters. Across the globe, which means that engineers have been coming up with foundation designs to suit the increases in heights above 300 meters. And there are many factors that you have to consider when doing this, but engineers have been doing it. We understand the issue of the soil profile and so forth. We are not contemplating buildings above 300 meters. As a matter of fact, I don't think any of our buildings would even reach 100 meters. But what we are saying is that let's look at them on a case-by-case basis, because there are engineering solutions in terms of foundation designs for most of these buildings of certain heights. And if you evaluate them on a case-by-case basis, then I think that's more in order in terms of the development of our city and the development of the municipality. And that is important. So we're putting that on the table, that requires serious discussion with respect to height restrictions. We are also, and I close, Mr. President, we are also recommending that the KSAMC, the government, partner with private individuals, and I know the chairman of UDC is on this pathway, that we look at developing partnerships for parking facilities. Because parking facilities would help us to reduce the parking requirements
for many of the structures that go up in our urban centers. And so some of the parking restrictions that we have at the municipality hinders certain types of developments. And what we're saying, if we have parking facilities in close proximity, developments dedicated just to parking, then that would allow us to relax some of the parking requirements. And it would also, as I close, it would also fit properly, well, nicely into the Ministry of Health Jamaica Moves program. So, Mr. President, I appreciate the time that you extended to me, and senators, I appreciate it, and I look forward to another opportunity later this year, sometime mid this year, when I believe the city will be able to present to the Senate some very tangible and impactful projects in the city. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Senator Williams. Senator Brown.
Mr. President, I am sure that this will be a record sitting because Senator Williams would have taken a longer time to deliver his speech than I will. I rise once again, Mr. President, to participate in this State of the Nation debate. I wish to thank all those who in one way or another have contributed to my fulfilling the role entrusted of me as a senator. I thank members of my family, all my family, some of whom are in the gallery today. I thank my colleagues in the UAW, some of whom are in the gallery today. Clifton Grant, my first vice president, Pauline Martin, my general secretary. They have allowed me, by their own development, the freedom to spend more time on national issues, and I thank them. I thank my colleagues in the Senate, those on this side and those on the other side, because the criticism and the camaraderie we share has made us all stronger. I wish to thank the political leader of the People's National Party, Most Honorable Portia Simpson Miller before, and Dr. Peter Phillips now, for my presence in the Senate. The role of senator I take very seriously. It gives me, one from the beginning, a chance to influence the laws and policies that affect the people of this beautiful Jamaica land we love. Because my views, I try to make them represent those of the workers, the poor people, and those who hitherto were voiceless. Mr. President, as we look at the state of the nation today, let us not forget that 6 years ago, with a tough negotiated IMF deal, Dr. Peter Phillips, as Minister of Finance, presented the blueprint for rescuing Jamaica. Rescuing us from the free fall that the economy was in. Rescuing us from the 14 consecutive quarters of negative growth. Rescuing us from the high debt to GDP ratio. Rescuing us from the high unemployment, and rescuing us from much suffering that the people underwent. Mr. President, I brought with me today a copy of that blueprint. That 2013 agreement. Because too often, either because of ignorance or partisanship, people pretend that the progress Jamaica made over the last 6 years is buck up and not the tremendous dedication and plan contained in this IMF agreement of April 2013. Bold decisions were taken, target sets, and plans put in place to achieve those targets. Much progress was made under Dr. Phillips' leadership at the Ministry of Finance. In the Senate, we debated and passed many laws to sustain the gains on behalf of the Jamaican people. We did this, Mr. President, even in the face of frivolous opposition from those who sat on this side between 2012. I know, but even in the face. Mr. President, when I think of the National Housing Trust withdrawal and the noise made by those there, when I see, and my friend Senator Webby is not here, the benefit Grace Kennedy is getting from the urban renewal tax benefit that the opposition opposed, because they are the majority there. It was clear to me that we did well as a government then. Let me put on record some of what was said in this blueprint, that IMF agreement of 2013. Background. During most of the past 3 decades, Senator Hill, Jamaica suffered from very low growth, high public debt, and serious social challenges. That's what faces us. A standby agreement approved by the Fund Board in February 2010 soon went off track, which eroded confidence, lowered economic growth, and resulted in an acute balance of payment pressures. During 2012-2013, the government began to tighten fiscal policies and prepared a comprehensive economic reform program. That program continues today. But there's some difference in how it is being continued, and I'll explain those. But that program continues today. That program is what guides the debt reduction strategy. That program is what guides the Bank of Jamaica into inflation targeting. So when I see advertisement by the Bank of Jamaica about inflation targeting to boost the economy, I ask myself, why waste money? That is something we put there from 2030 to be done at the appropriate time. We don't need to advertise it, because Senator Williams, that money they're advertising seems to be going to the greedy rather than the needy. That money, that advertisement, seems to be going more to the greedy than the needy. Mr. President, I have some friends with the PR. 3 years ago, the people of Jamaica, by the narrowest margin through a democratic process, entrusted this government with the stewardship of this country. Mr. President, at that time when this government took over, it was clear to them, very clear to them, what they were inheriting. They were inheriting a country that had made a lot of progress. And in fact, this is what the Minister of Finance said in 2016 September in the fiscal policy paper. 2016 September. This is what he said. Over the past 3 years, that's 2013, significant progress has been made as the government of Jamaica continues to undertake economic reform. Growth in real terms has averaged 0.7% per annum, bolstered by an upward revision of the GDP for 2015-16 from 0.8 to 1%. The government in 2016 admitted the progress being made then, and they said they were going to steer the course. So they can't blame the previous government for any shortfall now. But have they steered the course? Mr. President, one of the objectives of that IMF program is contained on page 19 of the document. It says, the economic program also includes reforms for improving the efficiency and effectiveness of social spending to help ensure the available resources truly assist those in need. The PNP government insisted in that IMF document that the government should do things for the needy. That's written in black and white in the report. We are going for the needy businessman who need reform in the system, the needy worker who need a better wage increase, the needy farmer who need support out in the field, the needy small business people, the needy people with disability, the needy young people, the needy women. We set out to do things for the needy. It's against that background that I'm disappointed, Mr. President, that instead of doing things for the needy, this government has set out to support the greedy. When I look at the country and I ask, what is the state of our nation today? One sentence can sum it up. Our country is mired in corruption. Let me repeat it. Our country is mired in corruption. The president of the JMEA, Metro Augustus, just last week his report said, expresses concern that economic advancement will be derailed unless such key issues such as corruption are addressed in the court. He further reported as saying that no indication that the growing disease is being given the priority attention it deserves. Corruption is estimated to cost our country over $700 million per year, or approximately 5% of GDP. There, Senator Hill, is your 5 in 4. If you cut corruption, you can get more than 5 in 4. That $700 million amounts, Mr. President, at the exchange rate yesterday of 133 to 1 US, to over 90 billion Jamaican dollars. That's what we're giving away by this corruption. That is why as a country we remain poor for too long. This is why prosperity has been a fleeting illusion, being pursued but never attained. Mr. President, over the last 3 years, under the leadership of the first Prime Minister, Jamaica, born since independence, corruption continues to choke the prospect of real economic growth and prosperity. And to make it clear, because some say it's a matter of age, some say, give us he who is born after independence. But sadly, the corruption indices doesn't share the optimism that those who argue that holds. Mr. President, contrast with what I said recently, just a while ago from the IMF, working for the needy, which is where the previous government spent its time, working for the needy. Corruption is for the greedy. Corruption is for the greedy. Let us recall under Jamaica some of the runaway acts of corruption that is eating away at the moral fiber of this country, but more so at our prospect for economic independence. I start with the 600 million debushing scandal, a scandal for which the Contractor General made a very damning report to this Parliament. Right. In his report, the Contractor General spoke about the Cabinet as a corruption enabling mechanism. Yes. He didn't stop there. he identified by name 3 ministers of this government who he felt might have been mendacious. What that mean, word again mean, KD?
I can't recall.
The question I ask in the face of that corruption, what was done by the government to account for that corruption? Where is the accountability? Who was fired and who was sent to jail for that scandal? Early in the government's term in 2016, $600 million debushing. And you think, Mr. President, that's enough? It seems as if the message was sent straight from the cabinet to everybody in government. This is the new order. Go forth and be as corrupt as you can. If you are caught, we tell you pay it back.
Yeah, man, pay it back.
Pay back the telephone bill. Pay back the mumbo bus of grass. Pay back the topsy-turvy cake party. And above all, Mr. President, pay back for the travel money that was collected by a chairman when the chairman never traveled.
It's a payback government.
So it's a payback for what the wrongs you do if you get caught. And I ask the question, Senator Braham, what message do we send to the people at Duns River when we tell them if you get caught, just pay it back? What's the message we send? Isn't there Duns River coming from? If you get caught, pay it back? What is the message we send to the children in school? Cheat if you want. If you get caught, just close the book.
That's a culture.
That can't be good for our country. And that is why it is important that we follow the advice of the Contractor General against the corrupt actions. Mr. President, they started with the debushing. They continued with the 400 million used car for the police scandal. This was described then as the mother of all bandulos. Up until today, the country is yet to receive all the cars ordered. I ask the question, Minister, where is the accountability? Who has been fired for this scandal? Who was going to jail for this scandal? Because the message you send to others in the society, do as we do. If you get caught, just pay it back. So that's the second scandal I want to raise. Because only a few I'm going to raise. The sale of gun license scandal. People were in authority. An accusation is being made that gun licenses are being sold. And all that means that board resigned. The country awaits a report from MOCA, who were told were called in to investigate. Undesirables may have gotten guns by bribery. People may have died because guns got into the wrong hand through corrupt acts. I see even at funerals, even at weddings, people are shooting each other. Licensed firearm holders. I wonder when they got those guns.
Check it out.
Where is the accountability, I ask? I never said anything about Cappy, you know. I never said anything about Cappy. Why are you laughing? I never said anything about Cappy. Where is the accountability? Who has been fired or sent to prison arising from that scandal? Mr. President, you think that those was enough. But yet we have the sale of UDC lands in Ocherios, which remains another scandal which needs some answer. And I am happy that the chairman of the UDC, who sits in the Senate, is going to speak after me. I hope he will give some answer today. We know, Mr. President, that the contractor, I'm not blaming him. I'm blaming those who think others are wagga wagga. Mr. President, we know that the Contractor General has been investigating this scandal for almost 2 years now. In June 2017, we were told that a minister of government was questioned by the OCG. But up to now, 2 years after, we don't know which minister was questioned.
A minister, that's his name.
A minister. But I know who called me wagga wagga. I know who called me Wagga Wagga.
No, Todd.
We were promised that the report from the OCG should be expected very shortly. That is in June 2017, because it was almost at the end of the probe. That was more than 18 months ago. In April 2017, almost 2 years ago, the Gleaner, the press, sought to obtain information from OPM, from the UDC as well, and the sale of this land. How much it was sold for? What was the valuation? But to date, nobody knows. This is a top secret. Why? Jamaican property being sold at a top secret. Mr. President, I wish to ask, when will we get the Contractor General report on the sale of UDC land? Will anyone be held accountable? Where is the accountability? Will anyone go to jail or be fired arising from this scandal? Those are questions that people want to know, because corruption is for the greedy. And our program to lift Jamaica up is for the needy. The needy are suffering while the greedy are getting away with the tea-free. Petrojam. How long this government is in now? 3 years?
Yeah, that road coming to
So we have all the scandals coming, and then we have Petrojam. That's another one. Under this Prime Minister, under the Prime Ministership of Andrew Michael Holness, we have seen the damning report of the Auditor General. We await those of the Integrity Commission and Petrojam. We await that of Mocha and Petrojam, because they went in to investigate. Mr. President, everybody associated with this government should hang their head in shame at what happened at Petrojam. Yeah. From millions of dollars overrun on a wall to four-tiered, topsy-turvy, chocolate, birthday cake from Minister of Government.
Sweet cake, dilute.
And nobody didn't know? Question I want to ask. Who was at that party? Were there any fellow cabinet members at that party?
All.
Nobody know and saw that something was wrong? Mr. President, we also had birthday party for the chairman. We had birthday, dear man, hold on, dear man. We had the collection of taxpayers' money for false pretense, for claim for traveling not taken. We have seen corruption gone wild at Petrojam. The employment of unqualified staff at inflated salary. The engagement in acts of nepotism were sequel to the firing of qualified, effective management personnel, only in order to open the floodgates of corruption has been identified. What happened at Petrojam? What happened at Petrojam, Mr. Chairman, President, was not a lack of oversight by the board, as some try to make out. Not a lack of oversight by the board. It was a deliberate action taken by the board. It started in July 2016 with the firing of the general manager, who was responsible for having the lowest level of eye loss. A professional, a man who had made progress, was helping to turn around Petrojam. He was fired. Nobody has been fired. No minister has been fired. Where is the accountability? Who has been sent to jail for this scandal? Mr. President, let me just mention the last one. Today I asked about the local government reports and the audit. I believe it's on page 74 of this document presented to me since, where it talks about a shed lease to protect the minister's car for $2.7 million per annum.
You know what?
$2.7 million per annum. A shed.
For the car?
Yes, and if you look at page 74, you find you see the shed, a picture of the shed in the Auditor General report. Mr. President, 365 days in the year. 365 days in the year. That amounts to $7,397 per day for a shed to park a minister's car.
So much for the car.
That, Senator Crawford, is more than the minimum wage worker earned per week. So 1 day park is more than the minimum wage. It's more than the sideman and the solid waste truck gets per week. 1 day, and it falls on the same ministry. Thank you. Mr. President, when you compare the $300 allocated to provide food for 3 days, 3 times a day, 3 meals, for innocent people taking a scrape up under the state of emergency, $300 a day. But the minister car gets $7,397 per day parking costs. How does this 7,000 plus rank with the condition at the fire brigade station at Stony Hill we saw on the news this week? How does it compare with the driver in solid waste who must work an entire week to get $13,500, but 1 day? Whoa, 2 days of the minister parking is more than 5 days work. That tells me that we're building up inequality in the system. What type of Jamaica are we building with such inequality, such scandalous conduct? Is this your version of prosperity? Is this the government's version of prosperity? That Napoleon, the minister, sorry, 120.
And water for the speaker.
Mr. President, the time being 1:20, might the Senate be permitted to sit beyond 1:30 to complete the business of the day?
1:20, the Senate be allowed to sit beyond 1:30 to complete the business of the day. Those in favor?
Aye.
Against? Thank you, Senator.
Thank you.
Yeah, man, no problem.
Mr. President, I could spend the entire 30 minutes I have talking about scandals, but I won't. I think the picture is given, and the silence on the government members' face reflect the shame of the nation. This nation is mired in corruption. This is a government that looks out for the greedy, not for the needy. No wonder people are saying this is the most corrupt government in the history of Jamaica. And it is presided over the Prime Minister, first Prime Minister born after independence, Andrew Michael Onis. Are you comfortable with that level of corruption? Mr. President, under this government led by Andrew Onis, the government supported the rapacious and exorbitant bank fees imposed on customers. That's a scandal in itself. Every member present in the House voted against a private member bill to protect the consumers of the banks. But the banks are making big profits. Who is the government for? The needy or the greedy? Clearly, this is a government for the greedy. Mr. President, nothing has been done to change in 3 years, going into the 4th year of this government, to change the status of workers being called and treated as contractors, like the security guards, workers in hotel, workers in government, who Senator Gill and I know are workers. But nothing has been done by this government to protect them from the exploitation. Tourism workers are yet to get the pension scheme that was promised to them, while the greedy gets what they want. No regulations have been passed to cover the over 500,000 members of people, of the community of people with disabilities, despite the passage of the law in 2014. What is this government doing for the poor?
Nothing.
this is a government for the greedy. Senator Cavanaugh, you and I sit in a joint select committee. But let us admit it. 3 years have passed, and the occupational safety and health law is yet to come to protect the workers working in unsafe conditions and in safe environment. What is this government doing to protect the poor and the needy? Why is it that you're always there defending the greedy? So, President, it seems that it is easier for this government to pass law to send motorists and fisher folks to prison for forgetting their license than to protect the rights of the workers, including people with disabilities. All this does government care about? Who does it care about? Certainly not the poor.
I'm sorry, my friend.
I could deal with the issue of unemployment, but I want to move on from it. I want to, because we see, I want to deal quickly, Mr. President, with the health sector. Because what is happening, that while some members of the government arrogantly feast at the table of corruption, the vast majority of our people are suffering. Things tough, things hard, pressure on the people. The health sector is a prime example. From the calamity of nurses spitting blood or fainting at Caenwood Regional Hospital, or bathing in baking soda, all due to the indifference of the Minister of Health, the people are feeling too much pain. From the saga of dogs eating dead babies, increasing death amongst premature babies, and the stealing of babies from our hospitals, the people are asking, what is the minister doing to ease the pain? Patients are unable to find beds, having to lie on the floor or sleep on benches and chairs, suffering great pain and tribulations in the hospital. There's the absence of basic medication. Patients resorting to self-discharge because of a breakdown of diagnostic equipment critical to their proper treatment. Elevators not working, pregnant mothers being lifted up stage on stretchers. Staff shortage. Lights in the operating theaters not working, yet we can find $17 million to put lights on a welcome sign. Where is the care for the people? Where is your priority? It's not that money is not there. It is that the money is being spent wrongly. All of this I mentioned about the health care, while the minister is competing with his colleagues as for who can have the most ads on television and who can have the most photo ops. Somebody said to me I should tell the ministers present that they should recommend to the Prime Minister the creation of a ministry of photo opportunities. Problem is, there will be too many takers.
No other ministry will have a minister.
Mr. President, look at what is happening with the mismanagement of the dengue outbreak in our country. It pains me. It should pain every single one of us in this chamber, as it pains every mother, every father, every grandmother, every grandfather, every uncle, every aunt, who must feel the pain of children vomiting blood, bleeding internally, experience excessively high fever, while government officials are pondering whether we have an outbreak or an epidemic. What is the importance of an outbreak or an epidemic when our children are dying? 13-year-old in Hanover, 4-year-old in Kingston, 7-year-old in Linstead. Go to Bustamante Hospital. Many children have died. All because of the indifference and the love of PR by this government. Listen to the story in the Gleaner. 4-year-old girl dies from dengue. It says, the mother cries, I don't blame the doctor that gave my child that cataflux. I would blame the health minister. Him carelessness make my child lose her life. And she was so brilliant. What does that feel? It tugs at my heartstring.
Was in the paper.
And any one of us who care for humanity, who care for our children, must ask, how could this be happening?
PR thing, you know, that's the truth.
How could this be happening? How could this be happening under a Prime Minister who in 2015 told us that he heard the cry of the little babies
Get deaf now.
saying if they had not voted out the JLP, the babies would have been alive. The premature babies he was talking about. He could hear their cry then.
Nah, you're no more.
I asked, where is the Prime Minister today? Does he not hear the cries of the mothers and the fathers of our brilliant children who have gone too soon from us? As the Prime Minister all these years? So while the corruption is taking place, government run up the crime to 1644 in 2017. The issue of growth, Mr. President, is where I want to come as I get close to, before I mention the growth thing. Mr. President, can you tell me why Mocha is advertising? The advertising slogan is, criminals must watch out for Mocha. What I want is like the special counsel in Miami, in Florida today. Lock up Roger Stone. Don't tell the criminals to look out for Mocha. Go lock them up. Yes. Go lock up the one who fire. Go lock up the criminal who fire. Who harbor the criminal who shot 4 police in Montego Bay. Why is Mocha advertising? Senator Samula, why is Bank of Jamaica advertising inflation targeting? That money should be used to put beds in our hospital. Why is the minister looking photo ops going to search a mosquito? That's not the minister's job. He must put in policy and put resources to fight it. What is interesting is a photo op, and that, Mr. President, covers this government.
Mr. President, the Speaker's time having expired, might it be extended by within the terms of the agreement to complete his presentation?
The question is that the minister's time be, the Speaker's time be extended within the terms of the agreement, of course, to complete his presentation. Thank you, Senator Brown. Those in favor? Thank you, Minister.
Mr. President, I'm not even sure the terms is, but let me just, let me move quickly. In the document, the blueprint to deal with the rescue of the Jamaican economy, in 2013, projections were made going as far as 7 years, fiscal year 2019-20. The growth targets were outlined on page 30. The debt to GDP ratio, wages were outlined. All of this is what this government is working on. 96% of debt by 2020. All of that. Inflation targeting. Flexible exchange rate. All of that is in this blueprint that Dr. Peter Phillips struck. You have done nothing other than to run up corruption. Yeah. Nothing other than run up crime. Yeah. Nothing other than PR. While the people suffer. Mr. President, the targets, the growth targets were behind in the growth targets. Not only in Senator, where is he? 5 and 4. That was the style, Senator Morrison, in 2016. 5 and 4. And nobody has announced its funeral, unfortunately.
No, quiet bird. Cremation.
The Economic Growth Council was set up. What is happening out of that? The economic ambassadors, including Senator Hill as ambassador to India. What has come of those things? The ministry name was changed to Economic Growth and Job Creation. What has come of it? It was the Prime Minister, Senator Caenwood. I don't know if you wrote this for him. He said recently, we are not growing satisfactorily. He said that. We're not growing satisfactorily. Oh, we're less than the target set in 2013. And even now we are reducing, as we did in November last year in the fiscal policy paper, our target for growth. We're slipping in the international indices, ease of doing business, Forbes best country to do business, World Bank doing business, World Economic Forum's global reports. We're slipping. It's time for the government to stop talking PR, and show your worth. Start a government that looks out for the majority, because the majority are not benefiting.
Not the greedy.
Stop looking out for the greedy. Time to address the needy. I'm not the only one saying this. Mr. Richard Pandu of Separate recently said, the working class must share in economic growth. The pie has to be shared, he said. Everybody has to benefit. And there has to be equity in how the society rises. That's not happening now. That's not happening now. That's not happening. You can't PR your way out of the fact, Senator Gill, that the people of the corporate era, no, Senator Williams, had no water over Christmas. No water over Christmas. And still, because of the bungling of the National Works Agency and the National Water Commission, that they don't know where the pipes are, the people have no water in St. Catherine and in Kingston. Added to the burden of those across the country without water. Water is life. Water is life. This government is failing. President, a friend of mine shared this with me. He said, when Mr. Owen said that we're not growing satisfactorily, he's compounding the error by saying the government of Jamaica is doing everything correctly. If they were so doing, then the growth wouldn't be elusive, as it is now relative to the target set with the IMF in 2013. We believe it is because the economic fundamentals are not being attended to in the railway, agriculture, etc. But more importantly, proper governance is not a priority. Yeah. Government corruption is not only being ignored, it is being fostered and encouraged under this government. Mr. President, it is clear to me, standing not among the greedy, not in the privileged places of some, but amongst the hewers of wood and the drawers of water, the workers. It is clear that this JLP government is incapable of advancing the standard of living because they do not understand the dynamics of a development agenda. It can be summed up thus: labor not working for the people. Labor is not working for the people.
Labor failing the people.
Labor seems to be working for those who enjoy corruption. Labor seems to be working for those who support the big profits in the banks.
Labor bringing pain.
But labor not working for the majority, not for the workers. Labor not working for the workers. Labor not working for the small business people. Labor not working for the farmers. Labor not working for the students who are being deregistered.
For the teachers.
Labor not working for the young people. Those, especially those outside the labor force. Labor not working for the people with disabilities. The growth and intensity of corruption under this government is holding back the progress that we desire. Mr. President, I want to commend the work done by the previous government. Just take the city here. Take Senator Williams City, flag circle, approved by KD Knight at UDC.
Yeah.
So when you put up your flag, remember that.
Yeah. Show respect.
Ministry of Foreign Affairs building. Yeah. First secured by KD Knight, but approved and started under his tenure at the UDC. The Ocean Hotel moved so that the Accountant General could move from the courts and free up space for more judges of the Court of Appeal. Done by KD Knight at UDC. Sorry, KD, I know you don't like it. But let the people know. Let us trumpet the things we have done for the needy, not the greedy. Mr. President, I know you have been to Victoria Pier since KD Knight approved the lease at UDC. When you go down there, as I was last night, two sides of the road packed with cars at 8 o'clock, at 9 o'clock. You know what, downtown Kingston, Senator Williams. Thank the PNP for that vision. Mr. President, as Senator Charles and Senator Crawford came through the airport this morning, let us not forget that that airport was built, expanded by the previous government, and done so, Mr. President, without one plane missing a flight. Without 1 hour delay in a flight. Compare that with what is happening on Abbey Park Road, Constant Spring, Mandela. That's how we do it. Change without chaos. And so, Senator Braham, I have one little question to ask you. Apart from the land, the rules property. KD Knight and I sat on the UDC board. We built the festival village beside the craft market, completed at around the end of 2015. I want to ask, well, if there's no toilet there, and you have 3 years and can't put in a toilet, time for your government to resign. Why is the festival market village another source of attraction of people to downtown Senator Williams? Why is it not open after 3 years? Why is it not open after 3 years? And we see what the Victoria Pier has done for the city. Vision. Mr. President, the corruption in which the country is mired is holding back the country. It is preventing us from achieving the things we need. Labour is certainly not working for the people. Do I need to say Labour Party? No. Labour not working for the people. Mr. President, it's clear to me it's time for a change. The needy need to be promoted. We need to get back to the days when the concern of government was about the needy, not about the greedy. Regrettably. And I'm sorry my friend Senator Webby is not here, because I wanted to say to Dan, it is Greg Christie who has said that you can't really say the country is going in the right direction when so much corruption abounds. And the reason why evil triumphs is because good men and women refuse to stand up. I am standing up for the needy. We on this side are standing up for the needy. The leader of my party, Dr. Peter Phillips, is standing up for the needy. Time for us to change the benefits of the greedy and put the needy above all. May it please you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Senator. Thank you, Senator Brown. Senator Braham.
Mr. President, I want to join with the senators and express good wishes to our colleagues and the staff of this parliament, and those who are here covering and sharing the moment with us every week or every other week. We pray that God will bless us all during this 2019. I'm honored for the opportunity, Mr. President, to make this presentation. I'm thankful for the confidence that the Prime Minister has displayed in me in appointing me to the Senate. And indeed, Mr. President, I want to say that whatever I've achieved is in large measure the product of a range of influencers, teachers and mentors who have supported and guided and held my hand along the way. I appreciate and acknowledge them, Mr. President, and to my communities that I have lived in my formative years in Westmoreland, Haddo, and on the Waltham Park Road, I owe them so much. And indeed, Mr. President, it is fair to say that much of my own values and attitudes were crafted in those two communities over these years. To my brothers and sisters in Christ at the Church of the Firstborn on Waltham Park Road, I thank you. You have played a significant role, particularly in what others would have regarded as a deprived childhood. I am indeed grateful to you. To my family, my wife and my children and my extended family, one of whom is sometime in this house, in the Senate. I am indeed grateful, and God has been good to this family, because indeed 30 years ago it appears that we would not have amounted to much. But I'm proud to see the young ones doing very well, even when they have ended up on sides that they don't always agree. But they are doing very well. And indeed so, it is something that I think Jamaica can learn from. I will speak about that later on. And I really have to big up my family and thank them for their support. And they are very large. I mean, I was in church on Sunday and I introduced one of my nieces to somebody. And she said, "Lad, I saw your family big. Every week you have somebody to introduce." And that demonstrates, up to 12 of us in my immediate group, and everybody having at least 3 children, you know, we have been very productive. They know him very well. Mr. President, in assessing the state of the nation, you know, I call upon all of that experience I've had, and I bear in mind what I have seen from a personal point of view, Mr. President. And today I want just to concentrate on 2 main issues. One is justice, and the other, the family. And we may not be able to define justice, but we have a very clear idea of what it means when justice is lacking. And indeed, Mr. President, it is our duty, those of us on this side and on the other side, to ensure that people are treated fairly and equally. And indeed, Mr. President, the improvement in the justice sector is significant. And I think that it ought to be acknowledged. The government has been allocating increased resources to this sector, Mr. President. And indeed, as the economic indicators continue to point in the right direction, I have no doubt that we will see additional resources being pumped in this sector. It's not a matter of fantasy. It is a matter of what you can actually see with your eyes, whether 2 or 4 or whatever amount you have, what have been taking place in the justice sector. Mr. President, there has been indeed, if you look at the court system, the increased use of technology in our courts, from the provision of additional desktop and computers, photocopiers, printers, scanners, digital recording devices for court staff, to video link systems which allow witnesses to give evidence from remote location. Indeed, Mr. President, there was a group of attorneys who gathered very early at the Supreme Court recently because they were appearing in the Privy Council by video link at our Supreme Court. That, to me, Mr. President, is significant. There, Mr. President, the facility, the ability to collect and to analyze data. Mr. President, a new statistical system has been employed at all levels of the court system, providing monthly reports of the court work to include numbers of cases filed and completed, method of completion, and number of adjournments. This statistical system, Mr. President, funded through the JUST program, allows us now to track the performances of our courts against international benchmarks and best practices. As a result, the Chief Justice was able to announce, Mr. President, an increased focus on trial certainty, meaning that outside of exceptional circumstances, the trial must begin on the appointed day. This is where we expect to reach in the very near future. And this is significant because those of us who interface, especially on the criminal side, with the justice sector and the court system, witnesses and so on, when you go to court and after 10 attendances, you have no idea when your matter is going to be heard, is a significant disincentive. And indeed, Mr. President, not only a disincentive, it is an inhibitor to justice. Because what it means is that witnesses don't attend, people get fed up, and the guilty may well go free. Mr. President, I have pointed that out because, to me, the continued improvement in this sector must continue to be a priority. Mr. President, the physical conditions of the court. I appeared this week in the Court of Appeal. It took me some time to acquaint myself with the building that is still under construction. And it was mentioned by my colleague, Senator Lambert Brown, but the fact is that the building, after so many years, after the increase in the number of the judges of the Court of Appeal, was put on the table, and we had that opportunity to increase the numbers, we could not put them anywhere because we just did not have the space. I understand that the expansion of that building, Mr. President, is in excess of $800 million. And when I appeared before the court in the new circumstances, not completely finished, it was at world standard. And I think it is significant because immediately the Court of Appeal has added 3 new judges to their portfolio. And I understand from the President in a speech given at the opening of the Court of Appeal that during the course of this year, to the latter part, a further 3 judges will be added to the Court of Appeal, Mr. President. That is a significant contribution to the justice system. But the expansion, Mr. President, of that public building is not limited to the Court of Appeal, because work is now continuing apace to ensure and enhance the physical facilities for the Director of Public Prosecution's office. And that work is going on as we speak, Mr. President. That means, Mr. President, that your appeals of the citizen, of the poor, those who are convicted, who want to file an appeal, will be dealt with in a far more timely manner. That is improving justice, as my friend Senator Brown said in his presentation, for the needy. Mr. President, we're not exactly where we ought to be. A few weeks ago, at the opening of this current circuit, one of those persons present made reference to the fact that they were traversing or carrying over 500 murder cases from the last circuit. And therefore, it is being added to the new cases and so forth. And so we understand, Mr. President, that this is a significant issue and that it requires significant and special resources to break the back of this serious problem. The Minister of Justice, Mr. Honorable Delroy Chuck, has in fact made mention of this, and it seems to me that apart from setting aside human resources, financial resources, we may well require amending the Constitution and also creating a special law for the purpose of breaking the back of the trial backlog in the next 5 years or less. We have to catch up, Mr. President, and I think that we are on the right course. And I look forward for the additional resources and effort in the next few months to bring this to a fruition. That is a road that we must energetically continue to trod, Mr. President. And so, Mr. President, the Minister from time to time mentions the work that is being done for and among the justices of the peace, domestic matters, family disputes involving children, alternative dispute resolution is now preferred. The government, Mr. President, in recognizing this, has embarked on a program of converting old and unused government property into restorative justice centers. These centers offer mediation and restorative justice services, as well as facilitate the implementation of the Child Diversion Act of 2013, which seeks to divert children from the formal justice sector. Mr. President, $62 million has been spent on opening centers in Westmoreland, St. Mary, and Trelawney, while centers have also been opened in St. Ann, Portland. The plan is for there to be at least one center in every parish. That is a matter, Mr. President, that is worthy of commendation. Mr. President, the use of the justices of the peace is a matter that the Minister, the Honorable Delroy Chuck, has emphasized. It's not unusual to see a month in the media the Minister having a seminar for training of justices of the peace or inducting new justices of the peace. This is commendable, Mr. President, because the justice of the peace provides community leadership, provide community assistance, and is a very important factor in the alternative justice program to resolve disputes and issues in the community. So, President, even though we have increased the numbers of justices of the peace significantly, there is still need for more, particularly, Mr. President, at the inner city and the village level, because we need the justices of the peace to be living in their communities or nearby as much as possible. Because I recall as a youngster in my own community when I needed to get a document signed by a justice of the peace for the purposes of going to university. As it turned out, I didn't know any. And when I was sent to one somewhere outside of the community, he wouldn't do anything because he said he didn't know me, if you follow what I'm saying. I don't blame him, and I don't hold it against him. He doesn't know me. He's not supposed to do so. So we have to continue the aggressive recruitment of justice of the peace. Now, I say that one of those areas that we can recruit justice of the peace from is the church. Every corner has a church. Every village has probably 4 or 5, Mr. President. You not only have the pastors, many of whom are marriage officers, already being employed, given a state mantle and responsibility, but you have the deacons and deaconesses and lay preachers and missionaries and so on in the church as well, which is another level of leadership. And I know that there are persons here who would say, yes, you keep mentioning the church and so on. But it is is a significant institution in our communities. Indeed, Mr. President, there are people in the communities who don't go to church regularly. When you speak to them, they say, that is my church. And then you say to them, but you haven't been there. They say, yes, but that's my church anyhow. The point is, and you do have that for schools, you know, so that people live in and around Kingston College, for example, they will tell you that's my school, even though he's a lady. That's not, so people are influenced by the church and good people are there. So if you're looking generally for integrity and suitability and so forth, going to the church is not a bad idea. The fact is, if you need to get a surge of GPs right there in the midst of the people, I believe that rapid recruitment can be done through that sector of the society with very little risk. And I commend it to the minister. And in that way, the average, quote unquote, nobody will always have access to the justice of the peace. The justice of the peace is not limited only to teachers or to nurses or to the policeman. Those are good people. But you have persons who are not, who are significant contributors to their communities, and I recommend stronger recruitment from this source. So, President, in 2017, a mobile legal aid unit was established, which has so far, I understand, visited a range of mostly inner city and rural communities, providing legal advice and services. Mr. President, through this initiative, we build a stronger communities, stronger families, and ultimately a stronger nation. So that, Mr. President, it is important to take note that the Ministry of Justice and the work of the Ministry of Justice is not usually on the high profile. But if it doesn't work well, it affects the work of the Ministry of National Security. If it doesn't work well, Mr. President, it affects conflict resolution. It causes persons to take the law in their own hands. It affects the confidence that the people have in our governance and government and leadership in our society. I am looking forward to the day, and I'm not only saying so because I'm a lawyer, Mr. President, but what it means is that I'm acutely aware of it because I interface with the system. That the average citizen, if you are charged for an offense, your trial will be finished within 6 months to a year. I look forward to that day, Mr. President. And if you are convicted, whether it's in the Supreme Court or the Magistrate Court, your notes will be ready in another few months, not 5 years or 3 years. So that you don't, some people turn out to be acquitted, but spend 5 years in prison anyhow, because they were waiting on notes. These are matters that are significant, and I appreciate the efforts that are being made. I appreciate the effort of the Chief Justice and the Minister, and I look forward to them coming together in this particular year for the benefit of the people. We are thankful for the effort so far, Mr. President, and it should be noted. I don't know about any foundation. I am talking about the actual opportunities that the people. Foundation is important, there's no doubt about it. But of course, if you don't build on the foundation, then you can't live in a foundation. If you have a foundation, you have to have the house as well. I am happy to see the houses that are coming to fruition in the justice sector. So, President, I want to say a little bit about the family. And indeed, I accept the nuances of the Jamaican situation. As one of those who left one set of family, I was taken from one set of family as a family decision to another set of family. I understand that Jamaica has its own informal adoption program. It does. And so I always tell people that I came to Kingston to live with my rich aunt on Walton Park Road. So we have an informal adoption program, and that is to be commended. The people of Jamaica must continue to reach out to people who are less fortunate. That lady who has grown her children and goes to church and see a little boy or a little girl and decide that I will extend a hand to take care of him or her, or even bring that child to our house to live permanently, send the child to school. Indeed, Mr. President, it warms your heart when you speak to certain older people and they tell you, oh, he's not my son, you know, me take him, but him take care of me better than my own pitney. Mr. President, it is a heartwarming situation, Mr. President. So I commend the Jamaican people for their generosity, because it is a very important social welfare system that we have generated ourselves. At the same time, I commend the minister responsible for the adoption board for the review of the adoption board. Because the formal system, Mr. President, has to catch up with the informal system. There are people who are informally adopting would like to regularize their business as well. And to be fair, up to now, the adoption system is a challenge. It's a real challenge. And if you know, that is because of the madness that comes and so on. But, Mr. President, the adoption system is important because many times persons can't take full responsibility unless they can show certain rights in relation to the child. So that the review of the system, I'm looking forward to the report, because there are too many hoops, too difficult. People are treated generally as if, well, you're likely to be a criminal or a pedophile or a trafficker. Why you may be interested. And secondly, Mr. President, there is foreign adoption. But then many times when foreign adoption is spoken of, persons in the bureaucracy believe that it has to be somebody from Russia, unknown to the child, trying to adopt the child overseas. But my experience, it is often a Jamaican trying to help probably a relative. We don't really have a proper or any system to facilitate foreign adoption. Now, I understand the risk of foreign adoption, but then there are lots of Jamaicans who end up with people overseas as well. And we have to do the reforms necessary to bring ourselves in line with modernity in that respect, because that's an important factor. I also, Mr. President, also want to commend the Jamaicans who are part of the foster care system. They are not, that's a formal system in a way. You know, Mr. President, if more persons were involved in the children's homes and so on, when they get very young children, would be able to assign some of these children to us. I encourage us to consider fostering a child. I really do. Because even though the government gives us stipend, there are persons over the years who have fostered up to 10 children. And largely at their own expense. We meet them every day, Mr. President, and it is a factor that is not often given enough credit. And so, Mr. President, I commend the Jamaican people. I look forward to the committee's report on the Adoption Act and the adoption infrastructure and the reform of that infrastructure, Mr. President. And so, but I go to the point, Mr. President, that the family system that we have is not in the best of shape. It is a tough topic, you know, Mr. President, because I say to my children, I know that you can have children without being married. I know. And people in Jamaica, the majority of us are born in situations where our parents were not married. Yes? But that doesn't stop us from encouraging it. People, I never use the word condemn. Nothing stops us, and this is a difficult conversation to have.
Address the president.
It is a difficult conversation to have, Mr. President. Difficult conversation, and I'm going to have it as best as I can. I'm not condemning anybody. I am not condemning any situation. I cannot be the one authorized and entitled to condemn anybody.
And you can't judge
either. Or judge anybody. All I'm saying, that if I look at my society, and I'm thinking what is a firm bedrock, we should encourage our people, as many as possible, to get married before they start their family, or at some point during that period of time. I know I wouldn't get any applause for this, Mr. President.
No, man, I can't give
right?
It's security too.
Mr. President, you always, to me, and I'm going to get myself in trouble again, you aim for the best. Many years ago, I'm not a student of Arden High School, but certainly when I graduated from my own high school, I went to a graduation of my friend there, and the guest speaker was Miss Gale, who was then retiring as the principal. And she spoke so softly and nicely, and she says, hitch your wagons upon the stars, and if you fall, you won't fall far. I mean, I graduated from high school so long ago, and I keep remembering Miss Gale. I don't remember who spoke at my graduation, but that's another story. So I put marriage as the high ideal. So we aim for it, and the government, in my view, should encourage it.
Yes.
Should encourage it. Should encourage it. But, Mr. President, at the very least, we should encourage having our children in stable unions. That's what I'm saying. Right? Of man and woman. I'm sorry to say again, of man and woman. Right? We should encourage our people, because there's an economic benefit, Mr. President. Right? There's an economic benefit. The families who have 2 people, if, Mr. President, you have 5 children with 1 woman, it is easier to spend $1,000 among the 5 than with 3 mothers. It creates, Mr. President, less enmity between family, less jealousy. It provides a unit for economic cooperation. If you have your brothers and sisters and you know them growing up for the last 20 years, it is easier for you to pool your money later in adult life for an economic endeavor. If it is, Mr. President, that you grew up in a situation where you grew up elsewhere, and one side of the family, some of the brothers and sisters, appear to have had the benefit of the father or the mother, or benefit of going to a certain high school, it leads to resentment and jealousy. And so I am strongly of the view, the statistics support it. Our children do better, they are provided for better, the struggle is easier, Mr. President, and they do better, generally speaking. It is a very better way, much better way for the teaching of values and attitudes.
Here.
I do not, Mr. President, feel that the family and encouraging strong family life should just be left to Netflix or Nickelodeon or some other place. It should not be left to that. We as a people should be able to say it's a good thing, and we should go out of our way to encourage our people to adopt that, Mr. President. Because what we are having with the Kingston and the city living, the extended families that we used to have, that seems to be breaking down. So, Mr. President, we can start now. I know that attitudes take a long time. But you know what I often say to young people? That when I meet them and they are telling me, boy, I don't want to take a student loan because I don't know how I'm going to pay for it and so on. I say, how old are you? And they said to me, 19. I said, but you're going to live another 70 years. In other words, even if it takes us 30 years to begin to change the minds of people, Mr. President, 30 years is not that far away. And our children will benefit from it. Let us start now. Let us, whether it is using the mechanism of the state, whether it is NHT, whether you are going to give an extended period, all of this is not government policy. So I'm making it very clear. I'm not authorized by the government to say what I'm saying. But I know that probably government might not want to touch it because there might be contrary views. But I think that, no, they never asked me. I'm talking about it myself because I feel that it's an important issue.
All right, here. That's independence.
And so, if we wish to generate stronger communities and families, if we want to develop shared values of honesty, discipline, dedication, and hard work. You know, I showed Senator Gale a WhatsApp or a news clip coming out of Ethiopia where they say that they are going to ban begging in the streets. Well, I didn't want to say who they want to start to ban begging, but I found that fascinating because there are certain attitudes that have developed over the coming years or the past years that is not good for us. Mr. President, I once stood in the airport in a long line listening to some women speaking. One of them, they were inquiring of the other, what happened to the shop that you opened in a certain part of Kingston? She said, I still have the shop. And then she said, but I'm going to have to close it down because a very good friend has been thieving me. And I help her so much, but she still thief me. We grew up from school and she still thief me. When I asked her, she said, but you have it. In other words, there's a certain cultural acceptance of the bandulu. Right? There's a certain cultural acceptance. And I don't want to dwell in the fantasy land. But there is a cultural acceptance of the bandulu. And it is not good for us. It is not good for us, Mr. President. We must get to a position where we can encourage our people that it is good to be honest. It's not a bad thing. Not a bad thing. And if we are honest, and if honesty is generated through our society, it will benefit the PMP. It will benefit those of us on this side. It will benefit Jamaica. Right? Because, you know, I listened to Senator Lambert Brown. I listened to him very carefully. As a matter of fact, I took even notes of what he was saying. Yes? I listened to him. But there's a certain level of, would I say, mischief about the speech. You know what I'm saying? Senator Lambert Brown puts the position in such a way that if you were visiting Jamaica and you were not aware of what we are having in, we have on the history of Jamaica, certain things, the history. Is that what they call revisionist, Mr. President?
Yes, sir. That's right.
Revisionist? Yes. It's a sort of revisionist history. It is the most, never in the history of this country have we ever. And then I'm saying, how long I've been living here? I've been living in Jamaica from Certainly more than 40 years. You follow what I'm saying? I have had the opportunity to experience governance. Or lack of it. Under different entities, mostly under the People's National Party. You follow what I'm saying? So I like to take I like to take a balanced view. You follow what I'm saying? I don't like to say, well, you know, the history just started today. I know that the history is longer than that. And I know that there was a time when Senator Lambert Brown was not as close as he is to a particular organization. When he was saying this is the most corrupt. Senator Lambert was a talk show host. And when people call him, I used to listen to him. But his memory fails. And I'm saying it's deliberate, it doesn't memory fail. So what I'm saying to you,
You're a gracious senator.
what I'm saying to you is that we must look at the society as a whole. We need to fix it. And look, if there are issues of corruption that occur while you're under the countries under this management of this party or this government, then the government must deal with it. You don't excuse it. You don't excuse it. You deal with it. You follow me? Those who need to resign have to resign. You follow what I'm saying? And if the public purse was affected, if you need to pay it back, you pay it back. Nothing wrong with that. You follow me? And if you need to take firm but you see, sending to prison, you know, Mr. Senator, is not a function of a political leader. That's a function. You report the matter to the police, you report the matter to the DPP, and they take action. That must, the chips fall where they may. Now, if my good friend Senator Lambert Brown, who is otherwise balanced outside of here, yes? If he was being balanced, he would have commended the most honorable Andrew Holmes for certain adjournment. Can you imagine the actions? Hello, Mr. President, when I hear about Petrojam, is it? And I understand the history of it. By the time when the government finished fixing it, Mr. President, it will be the best it has ever been in the last 30 years. What that means, that when it was in dire need of fixing, others sort of put it aside. Pay it no mind. You follow me? Maybe it won't be found out. But, so it is not so much, Mr. President, it's always good when things going good, you know. But when there is an issue, it's how you deal with it. How honest and transparent you are. How you take it on the chin and fix it, Mr. President. And, Mr. President, I have no doubt that on mature reflection, Senator Brown would have agreed with the comment I just made, that the government is in fact taking strong action to fix whatever situation that may have arisen. Now, Mr. President, Senator Brown made a point, and he says that the government is working for the greedy. And I listened to him very carefully, because I said to myself, when I listen and I hear that in the history of Jamaica, we have had the most people employed ever, I say, is that for the greedy? Isn't that for the people? So again, that is a statement made without mature reflection. When Mr. President, when Mr. President, I drive on the Mandela Highway. Now finish that, Mr. President. And everybody say, well, what it is creating some inconvenience. But those of us who cannot see in the imagination, yes? But we have to have the tangible before you. The tangible is coming. The physical. The physical. Mr. President, when you're driving on that Mandela, Mr. President, you're not driving on a fantasy. You're driving on a tangible road, Mr. President. In another 6 months, it will be a dream, Mr. President. Mr. President, Mr. President, is that for the people or just a few? On mature reflection, Senator Brown would say otherwise, Mr. President. That is to benefit Jamaica, benefit the needy, benefit the poor, benefit all of us, Mr. President. Mr. President, Mr. President, Mr. President, when you consider the situation of young people, and I talk about them getting jobs already, Mr. President, you talk about that special corps in the military under the HOPE program. You talk about the training that I've read and seen, Mr. President, young people. When I spoke to a young man recently who is a part of the HOPE program, and he has finished his year, and I said, so what are you going to do? He said, them keep me on, sir. Them keep me on. And them want me to go learn. I am doing CXC accounts at the moment because I work at a certain place in the government where accounts them do. And them said, me can't do the account, we must go do the CXC. And me probably could have come a chartered accountant. What do you think about that, sir? I want to tell you, Mr. President, that boy, Mr. President, that I tell you about him, not rich. He not come from the rich circumstances. He was desperate, Mr. President, but now he has hope. He has hope. So I believe that the balance as presented by my friends is not as it ought to be. As I said, it has a touch of mischief to it. Mr. President. Mr. President, I see the fire stations, fire brigade being displayed. Fire trucks, garbage trucks, Mr. President. That's for everybody. It's for everybody, Mr. President. The Hagley Park Road, when it is finished, Mr. President, will be for everybody. Mr. President, it's not greed. Yes, there is some inconvenience, and I know that the authorities are sorry for the inconvenience, but in the next few months, only a little bit more. You know, there's a song that says, one moment in heaven will pay for it all. It is almost, it's not heaven. It's not heaven. I'm not calling it heaven. But I want you to get the imagery just a little while longer. And when you look down the road, our lives will be even better for these constructions in the community. Mr. President, just recently, I watched on the TV, and they were opening a new irrigation system in St. Elizabeth. What are they doing?
I was there.
You were there?
Yes, 55 million pounds worth of it.
And St. Elizabeth is a dry parish, you know. And they're breaking ground. But, and big well. Right? And believe me, Mr. President, that is not.
Is that greed?
That's not for greedy or greedy people. It is my fellow villagers, my fellow workers and farmers, small farmers and peasant farmers, Mr. President, that is going to be a benefit for. When I hear, Mr. President, a lot of times misfortune happen to people. We make mistakes in life, and then in our old age we become indigent. Sometimes we don't have anywhere to live. Some of us males, because we treat our children not as good as we should, they turn their backs against us. And we are left on our own. We have nowhere to live, nowhere to take care of us. You know, Mr. President, people are injured and so on, and they have nobody to take care of them. Some of them live outside. There's a man who sleeps beside my gate at my office. I had a conversation with him, and he told me this morning that he's my security. You know, well, you know him. The question is, Mr. President, we have to do those who are indigent and those who are suffering, we have to do something for them. So when I hear the announcement of spending, yes, 500 million for some people, a little bit, for me, enough. Yes? But the government announced $500 million for indigent housing, Mr. President. At the end of my presentation, as I am coming now, Mr. President, I am not telling you, I am not trying to revise history. I am not trying to say that we live in a perfect world. I am not even trying to say that the government couldn't do more. But Lord, man, we must accept that the government has done a real good job. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you very much, Senator Bram. Thank you very much, Senator Bram. My only regret was that your nephew was near the area. Minister.
Mr. President, it is not intended to do further business today. Might the Senate be adjourned for a date to be fixed?
Thank you, Minister. And just before you do, I add my best wishes to the members of the staff, particularly the clerk and her staff, the Hansard writers, orderlies, security, Marshall. I think you are enjoying your first anniversary soon. That's when? Eh? Okay, good. So all the best for the new year to you all, and I trust that we can continue during the new year with the tenor that has been set there by the presentations. Senator Williams, you can speak more often. A lot of information was given and it was very useful. Senator Brown, thank you very much. Your tone today was moderated, I suspect, by the presence of your family. And Senator Bram, thank you very much for an inspiring presentation. Altogether, I think we had a very good day, and I wish you all the best for the new year.
Before you, I just want to ask, what's it with the Ted Cruz look?
Eh?
What is it with the Ted Cruz look?
With the what?
Cruz look, your beard.
Oh. The question is that the Senate be adjourned for a date to be fixed. Those in favor? Against? This Honorable Senate now stands adjourned.